Welcome to Get Zone Podcast. In my best Carlos Gomez impersonation, Carlos is on the mobile
Oh
because
man,
he is attending
stupid
what is
internet.
known to the hip kids as Vid Con. So I am sort of hosting today. I hope it's not a train wreck, but welcome, Charlie B. Williams.
Hey, what's up, Jack? You're doing a great job. I think we should have a serious talk about keeping it like this, moving on. But yeah, good to be here. Glad that Jack's back. It's been a little bit.
It has
I'm
been.
excited for the show.
Jack
And
has
welcome back,
hosted.
previous host Carlos Gomez.
He's hosted for all of 30 seconds, and Charlie's already sold me off.
Yeah, well, you know.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm gonna see if I can't maybe figure out a different way to do this. I don't know if it's the laptop, more than the internet or whatever. It's probably a combination of the two.
Okay. Well, that's all right. But anyway, how's everyone doing?
Doing good. Busy. It's hot in Chicago
good.
here. It's taste of Chicago, so that's good. That's happening right now in the city, and yeah, busy at work.
What is that? What's Taste of Chicago?
So the Taste of Chicago is a big, huge festival they have every year. And what they do is Chicago's unlike any other city in the world where we have amazing food, better than that other one on the East Coast, and nothing else really compares. So what they do is they have all the different restaurants that sign up come down into one area, and then come down into one area, and then like they have different sample tastings of some of the best restaurants in Chicago. You buy tickets, it's usually about $30 for so many tickets that you get, and you go around to the different restaurants, like, festival booth styles. And you could have like Little Goat, or you could have Au Cheval, you could have like Giordano's, obviously the stereotypical ones, but all the restaurants, and there's so many tickets, you can have a sample of their best cuisine.
Oh, okay.
So you get a little tasting of all the different places in Chicago. So they call it the Taste of Chicago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, LA does something kind of similar to Eat LA, and basically the same thing.
Cool. Yeah, I have never been.
Really?
Yeah, because I've always told that like some see what happens is some restaurants give bigger portions than others. So sometimes like you spend $6 or not $6, 6 tickets for like one of these like places, and it might be like, a Hot Pocket size or something like that. So you end up having to spend a lot of money on the tickets, and it's kind of like a touristy thing too that you do. A friend of mine, the designer at work, took his mom because she was in town, and he was like, it's not bad. And if you do like the whole family style type of deal where you buy a bunch of tickets, she buys a bunch of tickets, and you guys kind of share your different tastings, you get a lot of stuff. So I should go down at one point in time, but we're always doing something in the summer, and it's always like we always miss it. And then like when I was really close to the Taste, which is more down in the Loop, it would have been a little bit easier. But making that venture down there is a little hard for lunchtime, because you can do it for lunchtime too and stuff like that too. So we'll see. I might still do it. But yeah, it's cool.
Cool. Nice. So I was going to ask Carlos about VidCon, but he's
No, I'm here. I'm just trying to figure.
He's going to sleep.
Yeah. We're boring him, I guess.
Yeah.
And now we got a boob shot.
Yeah, I think I saw a nipple.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
No.
That sounds better. He's working it out over there.
That's right. Oh, I have to tell you guys.
There's like, he's been branded. There is his RFID.
Yeah. People are trying to jack my RFID number. All right, hang on. We're going to try this. We're going to try this again.
Carlos has turned into a guest. We just got to wait for him.
Is that, yeah, I know. Is that, can you guys hear me okay?
You sound perfect.
Okay, cool. Taste of Chicago is wonderful, but it's usually really super hot, and there's a lot of really really big people standing around waiting for food.
Big people? Wait, what do you mean?
No, like physically
Okay,
big.
got
He
it.
said no. He's gonna answer you no.
VidCon. VidCon is pretty cool, actually.
What is it?
Um, it is basically at the
Core.
yeah. I'm trying to figure out. It's so the history of VidCon is, I believe it was a couple brothers got together and they wanted to build a community around uh, YouTube creators, and so they figured they just started this conference, and now it's gotten huge. And even though YouTube is a sponsor, I don't think that it's YouTube VidCon. This is VidCon in its own self.
It's his
And
own festival, yeah.
I think that they got bought out by, one of those bigger event companies.
Okay.
But it's really cool because you have a lot of people who, again, speak the same language and they're trying to accomplish the same stuff, and you're learning all the same stuff, and it's people who understand the struggles that that YouTube content creators have to deal with. So it's cool. It's the community of everyone that that speaks the same language, and I always say that, but yeah, I mean, it yesterday I was nervous because there was all it was the check-in portion, and there was probably every 12-year-old in the West Coast was there. So I was nervous. I was nervous because I didn't really want it to be that. I didn't want it to be like a bunch of young kids who like make slime and do goofy things. But today was different. Today you saw like everyone from those young kids all the way up to I saw some older folks running around there too, and it's just really cool to see this community that's all encompassing. I've saw pretty much everyone that you want to see: young kids, old kids, white kids, black kids, brown kids, uh, people with colored hair, people with no hair, guys that dress like girls, girls that dress like guys. I mean, everyone who wanted to be there, or everyone is representing everything.
Yeah.
And this is and it's cool because, again, one of the cool things about going to, whether it's SIGGRAPH or Ground Zero or CTN, is it's this community and everyone understands what everyone else is doing there, and so it's super inclusive. Everyone, like, there was one point today where I was working on a drawing commission, and shout out to my new friend Chip. He's a younger guy, probably I would say 14, 15 if I had to guess. And he's trying to do animations and stuff, and he's putting them out on YouTube. And I was just sitting there drawing, and he came up and he was like, "Hey, can you explain to me how you draw a head or a face?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I started explaining it to him, and then there was a guy across the table. I started drawing a cartoon version of the guy across the table. So then the guy across the table started looking over. He was smiling, having a good time. And then a couple more people like maybe 15 minutes into this thing, we had a bunch of people surrounding us watching me explain how to draw a head.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool. So was this at lunch or is this just
No, it was at one of
communal
the
areas? Yeah.
yeah. So they have different stations, like networking stations.
Oh, that's cool.
So they have the way that they have it set up. The first floor is it's 3 floors at the Anaheim Convention Center. The first floor is basically the all the trade show part.
Mm-hmm.
So all the big companies that have a table, you can go and experience that on the first floor. Second floor is for I forget what they call it, but there's 3 different levels of attendees. There's basically the community level, which you're just there, like you just want to hear from the content creators and you're a big fan. And then there's the creator level, which is where I am, and you have access to different sessions, and that's happening. All those happen on the 3rd floor. And then they also have these rooms that you can just go and hang out with other creators and network and be friendly, or just sit there drawing and explaining how to draw a cartoon head with people. And then they all just came around. And so I was like, well, if that's what it's going to be, I took my GoPro and I set it up on the other side of the table and I started recording.
Nice.
It was cool.
Should just did a live. You should just did a live show from there.
Yeah. And then what happened? So then it was cool because the guy who I was drawing, he was super cool, super nice. And I said, "Hey man, thanks for letting me draw you." And at one point people wanted to see more of my drawings and stuff. So I started, and this is a pro tip for all of you, you folks that are trying to break into the industry. You don't know where that opportunity is going to come. So if you can walk around with a lot of your content on your iPad or whatever, do that. And then when people start asking, just pull it out and start showing them. And that's what I did. I opened up my Procreate and I started showing all the caricatures that I've done of all the Midway radio people and all the commissions that I've been getting. And it was amazing how many people were like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" And that got me a handful of followers on YouTube.com/CreatingJustice.
Oh, did you see that instantly later on in the day that you could tell that you bumped up?
Yeah. So and then the 3rd level is industry, and that's where I think if I can do it again, I might go industry next time, because some of their classes were a little more poignant to what I'm trying to do / we're trying to do, right? So they have classes like how to build an audience and use analytics to customize your content and all this other stuff. And then they also have their own, they have sessions that only they can get to, and they have their own different networking areas. But then at the same time, they can swing through. Like if you're at the top of the food chain, the industry level, you can go and you can participate in everything else. Yeah. But creator level is legit too, though. It's not, it's cool. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. So, some of the highlights from today, well, the number one highlight, I should probably wait because I know Landon is trying to come on, but there's I think I had her as my artist inspiration at one point, but I could be wrong. But on Instagram, Lulu Sketches, LULU Sketches.
Shout out to Lulu Sketches.
Lulu.
Yeah, so if you don't know who that is, she's an artist that works at Disney, and I love her work, and I found her on YouTube as well. And so now she's getting into making YouTube videos and stuff, and one of her latest ones I think you guys would like is she uses Photoshop and watches a Bob Ross.
I watched her. I watched
Episode.
that whole episode. She did that.
Yeah. And she's like, and it's funny because when he starts slapping his brush up against the easel,
Yeah,
she's
she
doing
starts
that
hitting
with
it.
her stylist.
She's
too.
hitting it at the top.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool.
And then she was like, "Ooh, this is kind of hard." Like she realized
Yeah.
like 20, like 10 minutes in, like, oh. And then at one point she like forgot to like change her camera or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was funny. It was really cool. And you get to, there was a bunch of other people that I met that that I just like as YouTube folks. But Lulu Sketches is definitely the one that I was just like, yes, I need to meet you. I need to give you a high five for being such a badass.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
while we wait for Landon and we transition, I realize, speaking of Bob Ross,
Let's go up to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe every day's a good day when you paint.
That's my boy.
I did indeed forget. So, let me quickly share this guy. So, present to everyone. This is my first time doing this, folks, so bear with me.
No, you're good. And
All right.
and what sucks is I actually was doing mine.
That's okay.
And
You can put
then-
it up on your camera, and we'll show it because there was only one submission. This one was a tricky one. So last time's fun prompt was homely, trembling hotel room, which I think was a little tricky for folks because we only had one input, but we had some.
You calling?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Wood.
Yeah.
We got a
That's a good one.
dude hiding behind a bed. Looks like he's got a
Bag of
stack of money, and a guy coming to get him. I
That's
dig the
hilarious.
composition and the
That's a good
color
one.
treatment, kind of like a comic strip. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was our only submission. So Carlos, if you want to,
Let me show you what I was. Let me show you what I was working on.
All right, hang on.
So-
Let me switch to your screen.
So yeah. So I have. I was going off of The Shining, and so you had Phil, or not Phil Nicholson. What's his name? Nicholson, whatever. Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was going to come through the door, and then you had the little kid sitting,
Nice.
trembling. But, alas,
All right.
I didn't
Well,
do it.
that's okay. You can still submit. You can submit late. We like late submissions. So, all right. What would we like our categories to be? I would say last time was a little sparse, so maybe we go with something a little
Yeah, let's see what we can do there.
more expected. What do you guys think?
Let's do. I want to do.
Oh, hang on. Let me
Show it.
sharing. We've got adjective, animal, character, action, style, location.
I say we go. I say
Action.
we go. I say we go A team. Adjective, animal, action.
Oh, I like that. All right. Shall we do it? Drum roll. A rotten wolf cycling. I like that actually. A rotten wolf cycling. I vote we keep it. What do y'all think?
Let's keep it. Yeah.
All right.
It works.
One prompt for this week is a rotten wolf cycling.
Let's go up to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe every day's a good day when you paint.
That might have been the very fastest fun prompt selection process ever.
It might have
It's
been.
on the same page. We're good.
Let me mark this down real quick. Rotten Wolf Cycling. All right. So, all right. Let me cut off screen selection here. So I wanted to chat about a topic because it struck me as interesting today. This morning on my Facebook feed, because I'm part of the Animation Guild Union, someone had posted basically the long and the short of it was they were offered a Here, I'll just read the post.
Right.
I was offered a promotion this week that I've been looking forward to. A revisionist promoted to a full board artist. However, I turned down the promotion because the rate they offered me was terrible. Named company, I don't know if we should, but named company offered me $1,700 weekly for a board-driven show. Barely more than I make now as a revisionist and way more work. I know not everyone is in the position to say no, but if you can, stand up for yourself and let these studios know that they're tripping. I mentioned the studio and the rate, the exact rate offered, because I think staying transparent with what's going on is the best we can stay informed about the studio practice. Now, that was posted 13 hours ago. Mind you, this group is a closed group. You have to be part of the union, so I can't really. I don't probably think it's not super kosher for me to like share names and share all that stuff. But it was posted 13 hours ago, and it has 273 comments. And
Wow,
it spawned a second post about an hour ago where someone posted the Animation Guild wage survey, which basically shows what folks have reported as their wages, part of the union. And the survey agrees that the wage is a little lowballed. Not by much, but a little bit, by about $100 a week.
So couldn't she just like renegotiate?
Yeah. So
why is she complaining?
This is a really interesting and kind of complex topic. I mean, I think it has a lot of components. Obviously, we can talk about wages in general. We can talk about negotiation, but I think we can also talk about unions, the pros and the cons, because I think a lot of people are really confused about unions and what they do or what they don't do. But yeah, that's kind of the first and foremost thing that someone basically started a conversation about is like, well, it's your right and in fact your responsibility to renegotiate. If you don't think that's a fair rate, you have the right to say, no, I want this rate. And you can totally go in there with the animation union wage survey and say, look,
you probably would have got more money. Like instead of blasting them, like it's negotiations, a conversation. Like it's an offer. It's not a final, unless they told her it's final. I didn't even think about that, man.
So it's a really weird and interesting thing, because there's a part of me that, of course, from the employee standpoint, totally understands this issue. And obviously, as an employee, I would want to negotiate for more money. And, no one ever really feels they're being paid enough. And I get it. I get feeling like you're underpaid and that you're overworked, whatever it may be. But then there's another part of me that I'm not an employer, but I am a supervisor and a manager. And I have noticed a trend, especially among entry-level artists, that they sort of feel entitled to be promoted or get raises rather quickly. Right. And this is kind of a separate issue. It really has nothing to do with what rate she was offered, but I have noticed that as a trend, that people seem to think, well, I put in my 6 months, that means I get a promotion now. So there's that part of this, and then there's also the third part where, as just an objective viewer, or as much as I can be, neither employee or employer, I have this weird thing where it's like, that's a lot of money. If you do the math, it's like 90 grand, just shy of it. And that's, you know, in the average of the United States, that's a pretty incredible wage. Now I get that it's LA, and LA, that's a terrible wage, and it's not terrible, but it's not great in LA. You can't buy a house with that. But it's weird, right? Because we're in this position where on the whole average it's a great wage, but locally it's a terrible wage. And
Right.
then we're also, you can throw in the global market, and then things get really tricky and complicated.
Yeah,
I don't know. Have you guys ever worked union jobs?
I've never had the opportunity to work in a union job yet.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah,
But
it's a,
I
it's a,
will
it's a
say,
weird thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I will say, 90 grand is a really nice salary, especially if you're in your early 20s or whatever, and you're 6 months out of school.
Oh
Like,
yeah, wow, that's a really really nice salary.
Come on.
Salary if it's like
come on.
if you're that one, but if you've been working for like, I mean, that's really good. I don't know if I guess in that area of the country, because I think 6 months out of school in the Midwest on this side, you wouldn't get that much. But
No,
I
hell no.
guess equating it to being out there, yeah, that's pretty good because you're renting anyway, and you're building, right? If you're that, you know.
And I mean, all of this, I mean, take everything that I say currently and then just sit on it, because I'm going to trump myself by saying at the end of the day, if you can get more than that, obviously get it.
Right.
Of course.
But if you're new to the industry, or you maybe have one or two shows under your belt, like, you need to remain flexible. If you haven't, this is going to sound super heavy handed, and I'm not trying it to be. I'm just trying to be a realist. You haven't.
You there?
Did we lose him?
Oh, right in mid-com.
Wow, he's doing so good.
He was doing good. Well, while we wait for him to come back on,
Yeah.
I think what he was on to saying, I think, is super important. And I was reading through this thread.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
Oh, okay. Hey,
Internet here
before
is
I take off,
trash.
I want you to finish your thought.
Okay. All I was going to say is you haven't done anything. You haven't proven yourself. All you've proven in 6 months, all you've proven is that you can keep a job.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess I'm being probably a little what's the word of it? A little tender on the subject, because I put in 10 years of work, butt kicked.
Yeah.
And then eventually I made 90,000.
Right. Yeah. It's a really complicated subject because, like I said, as an employee, I think people should always fight for a better wage. That is totally your right. And obviously you should always try to climb higher and higher and higher. The reason this gets so complicated is for that a couple of reasons. The one you just explained, I was reading one of the comments on here and I actually had to laugh to myself because I just thought it was so absurd. This person was, I can't find it now because there's so many comments, but this person was basically agreeing with her, said you did totally the right thing, and then said, yeah, my friend, I'm trying to get it as close to the quote as possible, said, yeah, my friend had a similar experience, and then it said, and she has all capital letters, ton of experience, and then in parentheses, 4 years between TV and feature. And I literally busted out laughing at my desk. I was like, 4 years is not a ton of experience. Like
No.
that is a good amount of experience.
But
Hey,
you're
Landon.
just getting into it though, really, right?
Hey,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
want to interrupt.
to be honest, at 4 years in, you're still junior. I'm sorry. If you're in TV, you've probably worked on two complete projects, unless you've jumped around. You might have 7 things on your resume, but that means you only worked on, in 4 years, you maybe have done 12 to 15 episodes of work. Is that a lot of work? Yes. Is that a ton of experience? I don't know. I beg to differ, because I wasn't even in this realm of $1,700 a week until I had put about 8-9 years in the industry, and I'm going on year 15. So
Let me give you an example real quick.
oh, we lost him.
It's gone again.
Hey, Landon.
Yeah, it's gone
Hey,
again.
thanks for having
He's
me.
on that hotel Wi-Fi, and we're in a
Every
heated
time
union.
I go to say something important, it cuts me off.
Yeah.
This is just the
Before
way
I
it should
made-
be.
Ooh.
Yeah. Before I made 90,000 a year salary, I worked for people like Visa, MasterCard, Nokia, Miller Lite, Bud Light. What else? Marb, Skoal, Kellogg's, and this is all before I made 90,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, that was like just over 2 weeks ago, but
You have a ton of experience. 2 weeks.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, but at the same time, like, if you have the what it takes to demand that much money in 6 months, I mean, the
Yeah.
only thing that could happen is they say, okay, no, we're done, and you get laid off.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the long and the short of it. If you truly are worth that much money, then they will probably pay you that much if they want you. And
Right.
if you're not, then they're not going to pay you that.
Yeah.
Now, the complicated part comes in when we introduce the union, because the union has sort of negotiated standard wages and set established minimums. Now, again, I can break this apart into various viewpoints.
Okay.
From an employee standpoint, that's great. Like, I know that I'm never gonna make less than X amount of dollars in X position.
Okay.
And that's cool, right? That's like,
Mhm.
in theory, a really great thing for an employee. What that we lost Carlos again. The part where that gets really kind of nasty and complicated is the union doesn't really take into account experience. It sets minimums purely for the role itself and the expectation of work.
Okay.
So now, in some ways, that's totally fair, right? If I'm a janitor and I'm supposed to mop 100 square feet of floors a day, I get paid X amount of dollars, whether I've been doing this for 20 years or 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Now, maybe that sounds fair, maybe not. Does the guy who's been around for 20 years maybe deserve more money? I don't know. Now you can obviously extrapolate that into more complicated positions where, maybe somebody who's been doing this for 20 years is a lot faster and can do twice the amount of work in the same amount of time, or just gets better. You have to note that person or guide them less. Like, once you start getting into these skilled trades and artistic things, there's a lot that goes into having experience. So,
And usually what experience, the reason why you get to charge a little more with experience, it's not that you've worked on 3 TV shows and 7 episodes a piece and whatever the hell you want. The reason why you can demand that much more money is because you're way more efficient, and you know how to
right.
problem solve, and you know how to fix things when they break a lot faster than someone that's been around for 6 months. That's why.
Yeah.
everyone can make a lot of money, or everyone can make a lot of really cool cartoons and websites and all that stuff when everything works properly. But what are you going to do when everything starts breaking apart?
Yeah, and that's something I can speak to firsthand. So I'm in like an interesting position where I don't dictate wages. I don't make the actual offer, and in fact, I don't ever see what they've been offered. However, I can make this, the recommendation to hire or fire, but I don't actually make the contractual offer. So that part is invisible to me. All I see is the experience level and the employee that I have to supervise. Now, objectively, I've worked with both. I've worked with people who've only been doing this a couple of years or a couple of months even, and then people who've been doing this for years and years and years. And is there a difference? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I was in charge of paying them differently, would I? Yes. I would absolutely pay differently to someone who's this is their first time doing it versus someone who's been doing it for 20 years. And that's something that the union equalizes, which, for better or worse, it's just a component of being a union shop.
Is there not like a maximum as well with the union
there's almost
wages?
never a max. There's almost never a maximum, and that's so from the like extreme other side of this, like the old right, what do they call it? Right to work. What are the?
Yeah,
it's like a common like Republican thing.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
it's like
right to work.
Yeah, so that's kind of the theory behind the right to work laws, or the right to work party line, right? Is that you then have, if you bust all the unions and you get rid of all of the red tape and all the in between, then the employee can negotiate whatever wage, the best wage possible, with their employer. And if you have somebody who was able to somehow negotiate $3,000 a week next to somebody doing the same job who only got 1,000, that's totally fair and okay. I mean, everybody's got a different opinion on that. I don't.
But what you find out is that people like Apple and Google and Facebook and who else was busted doing this? I think ILM, Pixar
and ILM.
Like all these people, all of those companies made an agreement not to poach employees, right? So that's where it gets.
Yes.
Insert your favorite bad word. Right. That's where it gets to that position, because you as an employee, they would rather you not be in a union, yet these big corporations formed basically a union saying that we're going to pay a certain amount and we're not going to poach each other's stuff.
It goes both ways. That's why I said it's there's no right answer. I mean, there are for sure pros and cons to having unions, to not having unions, and
to be thorough. Let's just define a union, because I don't know if.
So that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up, is because I think a lot of people don't actually know what a union is and like what it does, and a lot of shops in the industry are not unionized. Most of visual effects is not unionized. I worked 10 years non-unionized. Most of the traditional animation and like well-established studios are unionized. And then obviously anything in live action, on set, anything like that is all super unionized. That stuff's like a whole nother level. So the whole premise behind a union, and we should also make it very clear that there is a very distinct difference between public unions and private unions. A lot of the stuff you hear on the news that gets really politically heated is regarding public unions. So that would be something that a group of people work for a public institution, such as teachers, police, anything that's regulated and controlled and paid for by the government. And the reason that one's so contentious is because the whole point of a union is everybody comes together and we agree that we're going to fight for the same cause. And if the company gives us crap, we're all going to go together in the same direction, whether some of us disagree or not. This is called collective bargaining. That we're all going to come together and we're going to push forward for this common goal. And we have power in numbers. If we all threaten to quit and we all threaten that we need this, then the company should agree, right? That's the premise.
Right.
Or like a lot of hotels in the United States, all the workers go outside and start banging drums and pots until
Yeah. It's related to the good old fashioned strikes. So, but the main difference and component to keep in mind is a public union is kind of complicated because all that money comes, their paycheck comes effectively from the government, right? And they are striking against the government, and it's kind of this like weird in between that there's kind of no regulation, right? Because like it's taxpayer money, but then they're like striking against the government, who obviously needs to keep things rolling, and they also have like semi-unlimited coffers, and like it's just like a super weird muddy thing that gets nasty really fast. Whereas with private unions, it's a private company, a private group of people against private companies, and it's a little more regulated. So the whole thing about a union is generally you pay a union due. So every month out of your paycheck, you pay X amount of dollars. Every one is different. So there's also that consideration. There is a cost to being in a union, and those fees go to help pay your health insurance. They help pay for should you be unemployed during a strike or for whatever other reason. It's mostly insurance and to keep the union paid and running. That's what the fee is for. But as an employee, you also have to consider that as a fee coming out of your paycheck.
right.
Uh,
You definitely have to budget for it.
right.
Have you guys seen the Animation Guild Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing those comics explaining what the union does and everything. It's really good. And I find it kind of entertaining, just even though I don't necessarily need to know what's going on in the union because I'm not in it, but it's a good way to explain stuff.
Yeah, they're actually super informative. And just so everybody out there knows, even if you're not a part of the union, quite a lot of their information is public. You can go to animationguild.org and you can actually see what they're all about, what it gives you, what it doesn't. And perhaps most insightful for people who aren't part of the union is you can actually see the wage survey, which this is super helpful for a lot of people because especially in visual effects, it was like kind of a weird regulator, even though most of visual effects is not unionized. A lot of times artists would use the Animation Guild's wage survey to sort of, bargain with the employer. So basically all they do is they send out to every member of the union, they send out a survey saying, where do you work? What do you do? And how much do you make? And it's totally anonymous. So you can feel, you can feel safer doing that. And then they publish those. They publish the low, medium, high, average, all that stuff. And then that's also how they set their minimums. Is kind of based on that. So you guys can totally go there and look and see what different roles are making if that influences your decision on where to go in the industry or not. But it's there for the taking.
I'm also kind of curious, Jack, why did you pick up on this? To me, it's kind of like, I don't know, it just seems like business as usual, but
it is business as usual. So the whole reason, and I think we talked about this just before you got on, the whole reason I thought this was interesting, I think everybody should be educated about the union and the union's business if you're thinking about getting involved in studios that are unionized. Yeah, it's totally business as usual. However, what kind of really struck me as fascinating is somebody posted on the Facebook union page basically saying she turned down a storyboard job and stayed as a revisionist because the rate they were offering her was crap and it was slightly below the union's minimums, and she doesn't want a ton more responsibility for only slightly more money. And it spawned this like 300 comment thread, which honestly had me less thinking about unions and more thinking about just, wages, kind of how people need to negotiate, but also think about their experience. And then we've been talking about how we feel personally, how wage and experiences are interlinked.
What was the general consensus in the comment thread?
Well, so we we have to keep in mind this is on the union page, right? So it's very pro union and it's very pro. Yes, you should go renegotiate. You should slap the union, wage survey in their face and demand more money. That was basically the consensus. There was a few people on there, so the dissenting people basically said, like, in sarcastic tones, like, "Oh, how dare you make $90,000 a year, which is well above the national average," and
Mhm.
there's definitely some old school people that think that it's dumb, and there's some people that think that it's a lot of money, and there definitely are dissenting opinions, but the vast majority were pro negotiation.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I kind of went into that a little earlier, but it's really complicated because I don't think it's that black and white. And one of my issues with a union in general is that they do set minimums, and I sometimes feel like they're quite high. Um, if it was just for a localized area, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the problem is it's nationwide. It's not even nationwide. It's almost like worldwide, except it's only respected in the United States, right? So this is where it gets nasty because being a part of visual effects that's mostly non-unionized, we saw the opposite side of this, the effects of not having a union. But now the union studios are outsourcing tons of work, right? So, and a union has zero power in an overseas foreign studio. So one might argue that by you forcing wages up, and that everybody's unionizing to collectively bargain for higher and higher wages in the United States, that
You
you're
push
just
them out.
making
Yep.
outsourcing.
Yeah, you just make it a real thing. Yeah.
You're making outsourcing that much more appealing because they don't have to follow the union wages. And we're all seeing this. I mean, why do you think animation goes to Asia and to India and to
You can go even deeper than that. Why do you think manufacturing goes to China? Why do you think
it's not unique to this. I mean,
multimedia goes to Costa Rica?
Yeah, it's absolutely not unique to animation. I mean, think about it when like textiles and stuff like that, they were all unionized. I mean, that's the stuff they write stories about, back in the day of like picketers and like labor unions and stuff. I mean, half of that stuff is now in foreign countries as well too. So, it's like this really weird thing where yes, we live in an inflated economy and our cost of living is really high, and so everybody wants wages to go up along with the cost of living. But then simultaneously, this is becoming a global economy. Like we all have access to global employees, global labor, and of course, studios are taking
global
advantage.
Employers too.
So, I would say that's a con of having a union. It's forcing wages up, which is great for the local employees, but it's also making studios want to outsource more because it's too expensive to keep it local.
And I know that there's someone they're either listening to this right now as we speak, or someone that's going to come and watch this later. And I know what you're saying. Yes, we understand that CEOs are making an obscene amount of money. We know. But
so that's what I say to those people nowadays.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
because it's still the thing holds about you're still gonna push your job away. That CEO still gonna make money. So like there's still an issue.
Right. And it's not gonna go. And it's not gonna go away.
Yeah.
But the thing is that CEO, even if you decided to quit and move on, that CEO is still going to be there. And if that CEO gets let go for some reason, he or she is going to find a job somewhere else. That CEO is going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You need to play your game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not fine.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
because unfortunately,
like you
the
said,
further down the totem pole you go, the more replaceable you are. and I say that with as much endearment as I can build up in my heart for all of you guys listening to this. The game is tough. It's hard. You have to do what's best for you. But if you're, if you have, even if you have 4 years of experience, you are still competing with people that have been in the game for 5, 6, 10 years. So you have to do
Yeah.
what's best for you. If you can pull off 90,000 plus, do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Do
you
it.
need to you need to be ready for what happens if you don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it could be
I mean,
everything from you're settling for under 90,000 to, well, you're looking for a new job.
yes. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the realistic part about this is it's like, companies are businesses and they need to make money and and that CEO needs to
Right.
protect his bottom line and buy himself a new yacht. Like we
Right.
all get that. It's like a lame, awful part of just economies, right? Now we could go on a whole nother chat about how to fix that and change that, but that's neither here nor there. The whole point is, like you said, uh, you need to do what's best for you. And now if like this, and this, what this woman said is totally true. She is in a place that she was able to turn it down and fight
Huh.
for what she thinks. And that is great. She absolutely
Perfect.
can and should do that.
Yeah.
Not everyone is in that position. And her argument, is by me doing this, it also helps people who are not in that position and have to take lower paying jobs or have to settle for less. I agree. That's not fair either. And if you can negotiate more, you absolutely should. But like Carlos said, you have to also accept the consequences and the threats that come with that. Because if you're the guy at the top of the wage salary, then the company's going to look at your name a second or third time when it comes to cuts because you cost a
Right.
lot.
Right. And to play devil's advocate, I almost said to defend the CEOs, but I'm not trying to defend any CEOs. But to play devil's advocate, the part that I understand as far as CEOs go is they have a lot more to lose. You're going to lose $90,000. They're going to lose $1 million a year.
Mhm.
And they have the decisions that a CEO makes bears way more weight than what we're doing. You're drawing the fact that you made the smile a certain size doesn't change the fact that there might be some ramifications to it, but it's not nearly as much as if a CEO were to decide to do some goofy make some goofy decisions that was a detriment to the company.
Yeah.
So they have a lot more to lose. So I guess I am defending them just a little bit. Is it fair? No, not really.
It's the reality.
I mean, because without us normal folks, you wouldn't have a movie or a cartoon or a website or whatever, or an illustration for that matter. You wouldn't have that stuff for you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the CEO, and I'm getting redundant now, but the CEO makes decisions that affects the entire team.
Yeah.
And we
That's
are
true.
making the decisions that affect maybe just a little small part of a very small part of a small part.
Yeah. So Elizabeth in the chat room asks if, I think me specifically, but are you saying that rejecting jobs is bad for the overall industry? No, I definitely would not say that as a whole. I would say that there is a side effect to, well, not rejecting jobs. I think you can and should have the right to reject any job you don't want. That is,
right,
or you don't think is paid fairly. That's absolutely your right. I'm simply just kind of trying to point out that there are side effects to wages as a whole going up in a certain location, and that by not necessarily taking jobs that are available to you, that, you know, they're going to fill that job with someone else. Whether or not, I
Right.
mean, whether or not they're
Right.
following legal union guidelines is kind of a different question. But let's say they offered you the lowest legal end of the position and you said, no, I don't want that. And they said, well, too bad, that's what we pay. There's 20 other people behind you ready to take this job. The one thing
And
that
that's
unions
just that's part of the game.
yes, and so that's a very important part that unions do not take into account and don't balance, is it doesn't take into effect the state of the industry and the supply and demand kind of ebb and flow of projects. I mean, we're in a state right now where there is way too much work. There is every studio is doing like dozens of projects, that every place wants more and more content. Netflix is opening, has their own animation studio. Warner Brothers just has their giant one. Like, there is a ton of work out there. So the demand for artists is really high. So you can be a little more picky, and people are. What that does is it drives wages up because the artists are in high demand and they can pick and choose. But I've been doing, like, I have more than a ton of experience of 4 years. I've been doing this long enough that I've been around when the industry's not like that, and you can't find a job, and they can lower wages. They can say, you know what, there's 100 people waiting for this job. We're going to pay the person who's most qualified for the least amount of money. And that's not something that the union can really regulate. The union can't set minimums on how many projects a studio has to have, or how many, you know, that's just part of the ebb and flow of the industry. So she had a follow-up thing that said, okay, so to clarify, are you saying it's a balance of being too picky or too easygoing with wages?
Was that from Elizabeth still?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I think, yeah, I think it's a balance, and this might go into our negotiation talk, Jack. But I think it's a balance of like knowing a realistic number for yourself before you even go into that portion of the interview, and then knowing how to communicate the best wage for you, right? Because you don't want to go too high, you don't want to go too low to undervalue yourself, but you need but the decision to negotiate, you need to have numbers before you even get to this point, so you know a number that you want to walk away with. Yeah, you know what number you really want to walk away from. You know what number you're not, and what number. And then when you get the number right, you have to know when to be like, take a step back and be like, okay, am I like literally gonna walk away over, $400, or is this good? Is this good for here? And this sets me up to get higher, promotions and stuff like that later, right? Like, you got to understand it, and it's kind of hard to do that for new artists because they don't know their self-worth yet, and they don't understand it. They're just trying to get the most money they can get and feel like they're good.
Right.
Whereas like when you've been in the industry for say 8 years or so, and you're like, this is a step up for you, but you take it with a little more seriousness, and like you understand, like, cool, this is what I really am in your head, because everybody knows how much they really should be making personally, but this is what I want to be making, and you try to find. I always say you try to find in the middle of that, because if you go as high, like Carlos said earlier, if you go as high, then better believe you are now that person that needs to be performing at that every day. Right. All the time. And then really you need to be performing over that, so that they know that like they're worth to keep such and such on, because he gets paid this much, but he gets paid this much, but really he's worth probably about 40 grand more because of, so you gotta understand that too. You're setting expectations, right? Mm-hmm. And like your work-life balance with that wage also. And people don't understand that, because they're just looking to say, cool, I got the most money I could get. This is great. Cool, you did, but now you put yourself in a different bracket. So even if you're a mid-level and your wage puts yourself as a low-level senior, now if you're not ready to be that low-level senior because you're a mid-level talent, you know, you're now kind of overworking yourself and you don't even know it. And some people don't even realize it. They just think it's like more stress. Like what she said is interesting. What she said, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong in terms of what she said, but she said she didn't want the headache or stress, as I paraphrase it, to of being the storyboard artist, right? Instead of the revisionist for a little more pay, you know, than what she's making now. Is that basically what she said?
Yeah, she was saying that even if let's just remove the union minimums.
Right.
What she was saying was, I'm getting a promotion which requires me to do a lot more work. And she was evaluating her project as well, that the timeline is very fast and the amount of work expected from storyboard artists is very high for only a very small amount more. So what she's saying is, I would prefer to have an easier job and less stress for just a little bit less money.
And to me, in my head, that's just for me, the way that sounds like is that she thought about it, and this is me. This is the way I think of it, because to me that sounds like an upgrade, right? It's an upgrade in job, upgrade in responsibility, and yes, upgrade in the amount of work you're doing. But now but it's definitely like you're in the spotlight more than what you would have been. So she's saying, if I'm not getting paid to be in that spotlight more,
yeah,
then I don't want that, you know. Whereas in my head, the way I view that, you know, I would negotiate, obviously, a little bit of higher wage. Probably wouldn't even made a post. I would negotiate, cool, that's where they're starting. Maybe I can get, you know, another, you know, 5 to 6 grand more. So maybe I'm at 96 or maybe I'm at 98. Just trying to, you know, just to see where they go. Maybe they meet me in the middle. Or maybe I say I really want 100 grand a year, right? And then maybe they bring me to 95, right? And then cool, maybe I'm good. You know, maybe they could set me up. But I want the better role. That's what I want. You know, because I don't know. It just seems like it could be a little bit of reflection on like worth ethic to me. I mean, that's what I'm thinking as a manager here, because like worth ethic, yeah. Because now I got to push myself a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like,
but at the same
I
time,
want that responsibility. I want that responsibility. I want that smoke, you know, so to speak, in like just like a show.
But I think to me, it comes off almost the other way, where she did her soul searching, and she realized that it'd be cool to work on that project, but I got other things happening that I find a little more
rewarding or whatever,
that I want to lend my focus to. And if I'm giving you all of my time, she sees what the responsibilities are, what her job is going to be, and everything. So she's not making an uninformed choice. She sees everything in clear black and white.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, if you guys want me to do that, I know how much I'm worth. And not only that, but she went and she looked at the minimums from the Animation Guild, and she's like, you guys aren't even there. So you guys, I'm actually a little proud of her.
For sure. I in no way meant this to come off like I'm blasting her. It was purely just
I'm not either. It's just what I said. Just what it sounds like to me a little bit, because like, okay, cool, you get a little bit more thing, then you feel like it's okay. I don't know how much more does she think she should be making? But we don't know that. You know what I'm saying?
She didn't post what she makes now, but
you know, a little bit more sounds to me she's making like 80 grand a year, and it's a 10 grand in boost. That's just me. That's just my
and imagine. Let's go with those numbers, right? So let's say she was making 80,000. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to boost you up. You're going to be a storyboard artist, like a legit storyboard artist, not a revisionist. So it's going to be cool. You're going to love it. And here's 90,000. And she's like, wait a minute. I see how much you guys work them. And you guys are going to pay me. You guys are going to work me just as hard, if not more. and you guys are going to pay me less,
Mm-hmm.
figuratively.
Yeah.
This is a flat rate.
I mean,
Do they look at her artwork too?
and look at like this. Look at like this. If you go into it as a company, and the pro tip, whenever you guys are, whoever's listening to my voice right now, when you're looking for a job, approach it as if you are a company. Do you think DreamWorks, Disney, name your favorite studio? Do you think they're gonna turn around and do you a favor by giving you a job? No.
No.
Do you think they're gonna give you a job and, hey, we like you, we're gonna go ahead and do you a favor. We're just gonna go ahead and give you this unexpected raise.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that. So you cannot, and then I'm making it as clear and black and white as possible. I'm going to introduce a lot of gray area right now, but she's going into it well informed, and she made a hard decision. Good for her. So now the gray area comes in here. I personally have taken less money to work at a company because I really like the projects that they were working on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big gray area. If,
Yeah.
say, for example, if DreamWorks were to reach out, or Disney were to reach out, and they say, look, we really like what you did at Vid Con today. You had that whole table full of people and everyone was laughing, having a good time. We think we really want to give you this gig, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, we're only going to be able to pay you 90,000 because that's what everyone is asking for these days. Guess what? I'm taking it. I might be worth more, but I want to work on something like that. I'm not doing myself any favors, though.
It's just, yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I had a thought, but I remember try to remember it again, but I lost it.
So Elizabeth has a good follow-up that I think is a really nice transition that is also related. She says, what was each of your guys' first job involving art or first job in a studio? I'm trying to get a better picture of what a career in art is actually like.
Like,
So
numbers or
before we all answer that, just so I can
just an example.
Before we all answer that, so I can segue this and kind of correlate it. Just so everyone's clear, union studios, it's actually, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, this is kind of my perception, but I think if you run the numbers and kind of expand out how large the art industry is, it's far more common to work non-union than it is union. Union is kind of exclusive to like the TV, film, big production world. If you're a freelancer or working at a small boutique studio or in web design or in graphics, all those other stuff, chances are you're not going to deal with a union. So you're back to what Carlos was talking about, where it's you versus a company and negotiating. So I think just to keep that in mind while we're describing what our jobs were, I think that would help.
Video games is like that too. Yeah, for sure. You're on your own.
Before we move off, I just want to.
Please.
I want to teach the nation a little something.
Okay.
Whenever this is something I've been doing for a while. I read it somewhere in some book, and actually my friend Grayson reminded me the other day. He asked me about it. He's like, do you still do this? I'm like, I completely forgot about it. But if you say at the end of every negotiation or whatever, is that the best you can do? Those, I don't know what, 6 words will just change everything. It will open up doors like you would not believe. You're on the phone with Comcast. Is that the best you can do? If you're
That's a very good point.
Talking with I just did it just now. Getting parts for my car, Amazon. You say those words, and it changes everything.
The game change.
And the answer might be yeah,
Yeah, that's the best I can do.
but
And that's
adding,
it.
but
At least
adding
you
that
asked, yeah.
challenge, like telling someone, look, think this just a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit more.
I mean, the worst thing they can say is yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can still ask it again. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, if you get
I'll
real
play
good at it.
slight devil's advocate here and say that maybe a certain person could think you're like kind of an ass and like, wow, how arrogant, and then you just lose the opportunity altogether. But I think that's far less common than it helping you or making them think kind of, well, is it the best I can do? Because I actually I'm gonna have to dig up the name and drop it in the show notes, but I watched this podcast with this guy who is a professional negotiator, like hostage negotiator.
Whoa.
And one of the things he was talking about in terms of like working with people,
You think he
loves-
says, is that the best you can do?
No.
He does.
Right.
But
But
does.
no, he doesn't. He
I'm just
doesn't.
kidding.
But the reason I thought about it is he has a similar thing. He says I often will approach like hotel concierge, hotel people or whatever in like service industry. I like to say, could you help me out? Or at the end of it, say, well, I guess that's the most you can do. Like that's a different way to phrase that, because people don't like to feel powerless. They like to stretch their muscles and show what power they have. So that kind of puts them in the position of proving you wrong and saying, no, I can do more. So along those same lines, it is a little bit of a psychological game, I think.
I like
You can say it, a lot of different ways. You don't have to demand it so much. So, you can,
but Landon,
be a little bit more sly about it.
You're really putting your best
Landon is a little bit more. Landon is a little bit more violent than we are. So.
Landon's all like, I mean, I think you can give a little bit better effort.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy. Is that the best you can do?
That's funny.
It's awesome. It's a good point, though. Great.
Yeah.
So
question. Yeah.
Your first job, and what is it actually, to help get a clear picture of what it's actually like to work in an art career?
Just what we did.
Well, the question was, what was your first job involving art or working at a artistic studio?
Cool. I'll go first. My first job, my very, very first job was at a architectural rendering company, creating models and stuff for new building developments and like mansions and homes and stuff like that. Way out in like a area of Illinois called Lake Bluff, which is a really nice area. So that was also like a little bit demoralizing as I drove out there every day, passing mansions. But like it was an archviz, and like it's not what I went to school for, but like the skill set of knowing how to model and using certain programs landed me there. And I chalked it up to me. It was a 2-month contract, my very first one. And I chalked it up to me being able to model every day for 2 months and then paid decently. But that was my very, very, very first one. And then my very first big break job was at as a junior artist at Electronic Arts here in Chicago, EA. And that was like even different than my first one, but it felt like I was starting all over again, being very first one. And like even then, that this was back in, the first job was in the summer of 2004, right after I graduated, and then EA was 2 years later, summer. What was that? September, or no, October of 2006, or whatever, something like that. Bear in mind the dates or whatever. It's been a while. But like, yeah, that was crazy. And like, I'm not even afraid at that point back then, since it's so long ago, because wages and stuff have changed. Electronic Arts offers a junior artist back then. That was what was that back then? That was 40 grand a year. That was full
What year was
benefits. This
What
was
year?
2005. 2005. 40 grand a year. Anything over 40 hours was overtime and time and a half. Full stock options day one, and then like full benefits and stuff like that. But
What sorry to interrupt. What was like a day like as a junior artist?
so
if you haven't explained that already, I don't think you have.
no, I haven't. A day as a junior artist, I worked in my specialty. I found out after going to art school, because of the generalistic degree we had, I found that I was really good at hard surface and like environments. Thus, the architectural rendering job I got first. So I was in the environment department at EA. So I was a junior environment artist. I was the youngest on my team, and the next person in line had literally 10 years on me. So it was a very, very like it was a very senior team that they needed extra people, but like I got stuck on this very, very senior team at first. Well, I got moved to this team after being there about a month and stuff like that. So the typical day is that like you would have a general meeting with your leads, because we had like the open office, so we had a pod, and all of us were in the same pod, and then our leads was like literally like 2 doors or like 1 step across the hall in an office. And the structure was you had a technical lead and you had a artistic lead, and those 2 guys kind of tag team the department. And then within that department, you can have like the environment artist and then like the effects guy in the environment department and such and such. So you had different tasks that you had to do, and you had a list of tasks that you had to do. And at that point, we were working on a cinematic that usually games would do a cinematic back in the day. And at bigger studios like EA, you would do a X video, which is basically an internal cinematic that basically you're making for the higher ups to send off to corporate and stuff like that, to get them excited about the game, keep it going. And then that video ends up turning into what you saw on like TV and at E3 and stuff like that. So it wasn't even a game at that point. It was more of just like a little small short film. And I had a section of the city that I had to make. And obviously my tasks were just basically straight modeling, texturing, type of deals. And like my job was just to get props and all that stuff textured, or source props from other EA games and EA titles based on like all the different things. And then like they let you, pretty good freedom at first. They would just let you work for a couple of days, and then after a while, like your leads will come around like maybe once or twice a day, sometimes once a day, and then like you just had deadlines when stuff was due, to get certain sections done for the milestone that you had coming up. When I first got there, before I moved on to this team, it was a little bit more hectic because they were trying to get a game out, and they were just announcing a game at E3, and they were the lead people that like Steve Jobs and Bill Ballmer was going to be showing off our game at E3 and playing it on stage. So like I jumped in the middle to the end of a project where they gave me whatever I needed to get done. Like they needed to get like, ring cards done or turnbuckles and like, clean up models that somebody else has already made. That was like the first like 3 months and throughout that Christmas season, where I like didn't leave to go home until the day before Christmas, like, late, because we were like just trying to get stuff done. So they would just give you a list of different things. And then when you were done, you check in with your lead and say, yo, I got all this stuff done. It's all committed and stuff like that. And they'd be like, cool, go down to like the character room, like such and such has some things. We got about 50 ring cards for you to design. You're good at Photoshop. You don't mind doing that stuff, right? Obviously you say, yeah. And then like, you see the amount of work is like 50 of them, because it's like different styles for different levels, and like you get a list of stuff. And that's that first time I can remember having the insane amount of layers in a Photoshop document that like more than I've ever seen, you know, and how organized you have to be, and just
What is an insane amount of layers? I'm curious.
like 200, 250 layers,
What?
you know, just in folders and like all organized though. But like, you know, it could, so one could have been light with like 70, but coming out of school, I wasn't doing 70 layers. So even that was big, you know, I learned, and plus I was learning new software on the job too. Like I knew Max, but they were Maya, and like I learned that, you know, so you would get tasks and you would get stuff, and like you have milestones, and you would ask. You had suite mates that people that were seniors you could ask questions, and they'll help you out, and they'd give you critiques before your like lead would come in and give you critiques because you kind of wanted that, right? You wanted that, you know, other senior artists or mid-level artists to like kind of say, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that," or "Let me show you how to do this real quick." But you kind of try to become self-efficient too, so that you're not like bothering people too much, you know, because you want to show, you're trying to show and prove. At least that was the mindset back then. And that's kind of how it went, you know, for that first time, you know. And it's like a lot of hours though, you know. So, but like I said, I was fortunate enough to get a pretty good package, and like EA had some problems while I was in college, and like the very first instance where something went viral was because a wife put on a message board that her husband was being overworked as a programmer at EA, and that went crazy. That went crazy viral, which caused EA to like change their practices. So the 2 years later, by the time I got in, being a junior and having time and a half and going on overtime, like I would hit overtime sometimes because we would stay. I'd get there at 10 o'clock. Usually, like hours are like 10 to 6, you know. So I get there at 10 o'clock, work, you have an hour lunch or whatever. And then like I'd work till like, sometimes I stay and keep working because everybody's doing it. It's a culture. And I would stay and work till like 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, or 8 o'clock at night. But like that added up, you know, because after 40 hours, I would hit 40 hours on like Thursday morning, you know. So Friday is like all time and a half. So like, you know, you can get paid a lot, you know. And then I went to another my next company. It wasn't like that at all. It was like normal, but you still had to work the lot of hours. You didn't get paid overtime, so it was a little bit different. That's me.
Nice.
Jack.
Oh, you want me to go?
I feel like he whispered that in my ear, even though he's not next to me. What do you want me to do?
So
Was that for me?
see. Very first art-related job, I was working for a web studio while still in college in Chicago called, at the time, they're no longer in business, Watermark Productions, I think it was called.
Watermark, really?
And they were big into online, what was it called? What's that called? Commercial, like shopping carts, when that, like building shopping carts, e-commerce. They were like an e-commerce company when that was like hot, right? And you still needed like a ton of developers to do that before it was like a plug and play, and there was like giant companies offering it. So it was a small company. It was just like 6 people. It was 3 programmers, 2 designers, and then the owner, who was also more art background. So they hired me to do mainly design work. It was like partial graphic design and then partial animation, because they were starting to get into developing with Flash. They were converting a lot of their
Calm down.
They were converting a lot of their other interactive or motion websites to Flash because it was pretty hot at the time, and they needed somebody who could kind of animate stuff should they need, you know, logos animated, or in some cases, you know, companies wanted cartoon characters or whatever it may be. So it was web-based animation. I'm trying to remember how much I made, but it wasn't a lot compared to $1,700 a week.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 39,000 a year, just shy of 40,000, because I remember it wasn't 40,000. And I worked with one other guy who was like a graphic design guy, and we basically he did all the like design work of the web pages, and then he would identify elements that needed to be animated, and I was the designated animator. And I also had an interest in programming, and Flash being the main tool at that studio, or at least for the designers. I started learning ActionScript, and it was stumbling at first. I was constantly asking the programmer next to me, how do you do this, how do you do that? But it was a tight-knit team. It was really good, and I picked up ActionScript pretty fast. And then I was in Carlos's office when he was at Art Institute, asking him how to make a face maker app, I think it was, and then there was like a car maker I wanted to do. So I was kind of trying to I was kind of trying to put what I had learned at work to work. And then that company, I ended up getting laid off because the company kind of dissolved. It couldn't keep up with the fast-paced moving industry. So from there, I was unemployed for a little while, and then I did some 2D. My next kind of animation related, I worked for a company out of Racine, Wisconsin, which is where I'm from. It is the only animation house probably in Wisconsin. It's certainly the only animation house in Racine. And I remember touring this place as a kid because, it's the only animation house. And their claim to fame is they worked on Fern Gully back in the day.
Ooh.
And kind of, I hate to slam them because it's my hometown and I worked for them, but kind of not much since.
There it is.
Karen Johnson Productions. So it was this woman who just was really into animation, and she married into the Johnson family, which is a very wealthy family known for Johnson and Johnson products, like Off and Ziploc and all this stuff, which is based in Racine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So she started her own company, and they did Fern Gully. And then when I joined them, this was 2005-ish, 4 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing also Flash animation, and they were doing mainly web-based interactive webisodes and some like educational stuff. So I was doing, they had pre-built, like, it wasn't even puppets at the time because they didn't really, Flash hadn't really fully figured that out. It was more like they had all the symbols and the clips and the characters built, and then I had to muscle my way through and animate characters to the dialogue and the script that they had. So that was probably the first job where I was actually more similar to what I'm doing now. And that was trash pay as well. I want to say it was 40,000-ish as well. But again, first job in the industry, and it was in the Midwest. So the market there, is the economy is quite a bit lower. So you have to take that into account.
Yep.
And the jobs are sparse.
Yeah. Well, especially for the animation industry, I mean, jobs are sparse. And then I ultimately left that job to when I got picked up by Digital Domain. So I couldn't really turn down the Hollywood job for.
Oh no, you can't.
I love you guys. Racine, Karen Johnson Productions. I couldn't have stayed there.
I can't stay here though. I'm suffocating.
Let's see. My first job was, and I was going through trying to figure out which it was, and I think I have to go with when I was still in college, when I was going to school for advertising. I ended up getting a job at the Latino TV Guide of Chicago.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know about this one.
Yeah. That's the place that I was talking to the lead designer, and she kept asking me for the Smick color, and I was like, after a little while, I was like, okay, I need help. What's Smick? She goes, the red, yellow, blue, black. I was like, oh, CMYK.
Smick.
Okay. Sorry, but I gotta say this. You know the voice I heard as you tell this story? either Rosie Perez or Sophia
Vergara.
Vergara.
That's funny. That's funny. You know, Smick.
Love it.
Wait, Sofia Vergara in that voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I don't care. That was hilarious.
Smick. I like it.
Yeah.
You know the Smick.
Can you get me the Smick code for that? I'm like, I'm sorry.
You like she
I
does some
remember-
advanced stuff.
I remember, yeah. I remember being like, how do I ask? I was like, I'm still in school and stuff. I was trying to not make her mad or like piss her off or whatever because
Right.
she was always real busy. That's why they needed me there. And I was like, I'm still in school, so I don't know all these newfangled terms yet. What is Smick? She goes, CMYK. I was like, oh, get out of here with that. So yeah.
That's great.
We got a show title.
Smick.
So
Yeah.
Landon,
What was my first job? I don't really have an answer to that because I don't have a first art job. I haven't worked in an animation studio or any
have you
sort of
taken-
job like
have you
that.
taken a commission or done anything freelance or?
Well, certainly, yeah. I've done lots of freelance stuff.
So like, what
My
was the
first,
What was the first thing you got paid for that you were like, yeah, that felt like art. That felt like something I want to keep doing.
Yeah.
I had somebody buy a fine art painting. I made a painting of
There you
President Obama.
There you go. Yeah.
And yeah, that was someone that had thumbtacks in it. I was in a thumbtack phase.
Really?
Okay.
You saw the thumbtack portrait of Obama?
Do you have a
Actually,
picture?
it also this may offend some people, but I used I
There
took
we go.
apart flags.
We
And
let him on the
them-
show one time.
You then get
I-
blacklisted.
I took apart flags and American flags and kind of, put it on there and used it as a canvas mostly, and just had all sorts of random collage stuff in there, and then painted on top of it.
Whoa.
I think there was some. I think I also got some Vietnam. I had found some greeting cards, some old Vietnam greeting cards that I would assume some soldier brought over from Vietnam because they were all in this vellum paper and it was all written in Vietnamese. But some of it was like well, I guess it wasn't it wasn't all Vietnamese, but some of it was English and it said like Merry Christmas or something. But I would assume that Vietnamese people made them and sold them to the soldiers. So anyways, I used that as a background as well for the painting. But anyways, someone bought that. They really liked Obama, and I was like, wow, I just made $200. And then actually I framed it for him. I custom framed it because it was a pain in the butt because it had thumbtacks in it everywhere.
I bet.
So that was probably that was pretty interesting, to find out that somebody would actually buy my work. And I think probably some of the next things I did were more like business cards and logos that I designed for people.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Thumbtacks. You had me at thumbtacks, man.
Yeah. Do you have?
I did a whole series, lots of thumbtacks,
Really?
lots of American flags, lots of oil and acrylic paint, and lots of anger.
Yeah. Oh. Oh wow.
Anger,
Okay.
huh?
Okay.
That's fine art's good at that. It's a good emotional release.
Yeah,
Do
it
you have
was.
Do you have photos? Because I'm kind of curious of this thumbtack
Thumbtack.
art.
I really
I
Um,
know.
yeah, I definitely have photos. I took them all off the website, but they're somewhere. I'll. I don't think I have anything that's like that I can show right now, but I'll send them to you sometime.
He's never gonna show you.
I'm excited. Yeah, we can't let him forget.
Yeah, don't let him forget that.
I'll put them in the
Conveniently forget.
Discord.
Oh, there you
Anybody
go.
that's listening,
Ooh, if
I'll
that
put them in
doesn't
the
get people,
Discord.
if that doesn't get people the Discord, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one of them. One of them was Martin Luther King
Whoa.
against Charles Manson. They were like
Whoa.
yelling at each other, or well, they were like facing
Yeah.
each other, and kind of
Shooting thumbtacks at each other.
yeah, basically.
Landon's going in.
Yeah, he is.
He's the fine artist here.
You know, it's
I'm
funny.
glad I don't do that stuff anymore.
You know, it's funny. Today, when I was sitting at the table doing the drawings and stuff, this lady walks up and says, "Oh, are you guys fine artists?" I go, "My art is fine."
Oh gosh. No, you didn't.
I did.
No,
I did.
I can't take you nowhere.
Oh no, I'm awkward in public.
Carl just has some random people. I'm still waiting to see who he's met. He had the most interesting people he meets when he goes out in public.
Oh, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy.
No.
Anyway,
Cool.
a
A little bit of insight.
I'm trying to think. I was trying to think. So when I finished my degree in animation,
Mm-hmm.
I was already working at this video game company, and they made me a full-time job offer. So I was just an intern, and I was making, I don't even remember how much it was. It was not much at all. The only thing was at that time, my school, this job, the video game job,
Mm-hmm.
and where I lived were all really close to each other. So I had the flexibility to take this low-paying job.
Because your gas is low.
Right. And I would ride my bicycle there. Like, it was close. And then when they said, okay, well, we're going to offer you a full-time position, I was like, all right, cool. And they're like, we're going to give you $25,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I said, wait, what?
What? Excuse me?
Yeah. My ex-employer say what?
Yeah.
So then I was like, yeah, no, there's no way. Like, that would have been my rent and groceries for 2 days. That's it.
Yeah. I mean,
No, and I'm talking no gasoline in the car, no hanging out with friends, none of that stuff.
just your bike.
Yeah. And these are the discussions that when our listeners are going through and trying to figure out a budget, how much they want to make, how much they can survive off of. These are the things that you need to keep in mind. Is it cool to have a job in the industry doing whatever that you've always wanted to do? Yes, there's no beating that. However, how good is that job if you're hungry 4 days out of the week?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to take a look at what's your lifestyle like? What's a comfortable lifestyle for you? Having an apartment or home of some sort, eating, transportation. Do you want to go out and have fun with your friends? Do you want to go to the movies once or twice? And those are all the things that you need to. Those are all the things that you need to plan for when you're setting up for your negotiations. And going back to this girl that was shaking her head for the $90,000 offer, like, we don't know. Maybe she probably did. The way that everything is building up, she probably sat there with a piece of paper and a calculator and figured out, like, okay, so this is how much I'm making now. This is how much time and effort they're asking for. They're going to ask for more than that, but I have a lifestyle that I want to maintain. And those are the conversations that you need to have with yourself. There's no sense in taking a job if you're the only one that's going to be sacrificing.
Yeah.
It's no fun when you get home from 12 hours of work and you open up the refrigerator and there's a tumbleweed. I speak from experience. That's no fun at all.
Yeah. It's not fun. Speaking, I can share a similar story, and it's on topic with the whole wage discussion. When I first moved to LA, and I was super excited about my amazing Hollywood job at Digital Domain, and I was being paid $21 an hour, and I did the math, and my rent was $2,300 a month.
Yo, Jack.
Well, that just didn't add up.
Yo, Jack.
And I went into the woman who hired me. I went into her office and I was like, looking
hungry.
back, I was like, what a moron I was. But I was desperate. I literally went into her office and I asked, hey, that number you gave me, is that before or after taxes? And she was like, oh, honey, come on. It's it's before taxes. You got taxes. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, there was panic for a while. There was a lot of tumbleweeds in my fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is his first apartment was like right on the beach.
Oh, well, yeah. That one in Venice, that was, I mean,
sure, it
right
was
on the beach and right
people,
next to a meth lab.
Breaking Bad happened outside of his
Oh yeah, the
door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, guys. This is great.
So, does anybody have anything else? Oh, Elizabeth's got another one. Do we want?
Yeah, bring it. Let's go.
Yeah, we do. I really like her.
It is okay.
Her whole entire family is legit.
Hey, it's Dave Atsy.
I like turtles.
Hi,
turtles.
Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, where's all the sound effects?
So
Jack?
Elizabeth asks,
Jack is working hard over there.
is it worth making a portfolio for myself if I'm not at a point where I am hireable? Am I still working on building my skills? I'm still working on building my skills, but I'm talking about putting together a portfolio specifically. I say this because all the advice from me so far has been make yourself a website. Carlos, I think you should answer this one.
Why did you say it? So
I don't know. This is like a topic you talk about often, and then she had to throw and make a website. So I
yeah. I say yeah. But constantly refresh what you have. So, you don't know what companies are looking for. So don't assume that people aren't looking for you. You need to put your work out there and show them what you have currently, but then continue. You have to take it upon yourself to continue to create work and to get better. And when you have a piece that's better, You go and you look through your portfolio and you take one out, you put the new one in. And then the more you create and the better you get, the more those are the things that you push out to your portfolio. And as far as, and if this is Elizabeth that's asking this, she's animating constantly. So people want to see that you can initiate an idea, do all the roughs, put it together, animate it, and deliver. Those are skills that are invaluable, and you need to show them. If you don't have a portfolio and you're not letting people know that you're looking for work, they're not going to know to offer you the job.
Right.
Or at least an interview.
So she has a follow-up clarification. So if I have a garbage website for just a little bit, it won't hurt my future?
The website itself.
I had paintings with thumbtacks in them for a while on my site.
And this is something that I really have to point out to everyone, including everyone on the panel, people listening, people that are about to listen. If you are an illustrator, an animator, all that stuff, find a website that services what you need. Do not spend 6 months on a website.
No.
You don't want to be a web designer. Why the hell are you spending 6 months on a website?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Take that time and work on your stuff and find something simple. Just like last week when we were talking to not Joel. Joel is another one that we're gonna get.
Miguel.
Miguel. We're talking to Miguel, and if you go to his website, he's got navigation on the left, and he's got all the content in the middle, and that's it. Come take a look at my stuff. If you're going for an animation job, you're not going to miss out on an animation job because the web design wasn't quite right.
I missed that whole second half. You broke up.
Oh, I said if you're going for an animation job, there's no animation studio out there that, if your stuff is good, there's no animation studio out there that is not going to offer you a job because the web design wasn't quite right.
Right.
They're looking at your drawing skills and they're looking at your animation skills.
And to add to that, which I guess I'm a little unclear about the question. If you say your website is garbage, are you saying it's the website design or it's the content of your website? And like Carlos says, there's so many services that provide simple website templates and like Squarespace and Wix, and you don't even have to have your own dedicated website. You can put your stuff on Vimeo. You can put it on ArtStation.
There's a lot of professionals that
there's
have their URLs. Yeah, they have their URLs. So if you type in BillyBadassAnimator.com, it actually takes you to ArtStation.
Yeah.
And you can also, there's also a thing that you can do with Tumblr, where you can make Tumblr your homepage, but you can customize it. It doesn't really look like Tumblr. It looks like a blog website.
ArtStation has a really good portfolio section too, where you have the regular ArtStation page you can do for free, but there's also like the actual ArtStation portfolio thing that you could do too. That's really nice too.
Yeah.
So she clarified, she says, I was talking about my skills, not necessarily the website. So I would say, like Carlos, I mean, Dave Atzi, funny enough, he's in the chat room. It's one of my favorite things to quote is like, he says, don't put anything on your portfolio that you don't want to end up doing. So along that line, follow that advice, but also just put whatever your best stuff is there. I mean, always put your best stuff. Is it up to par with, the most amazing artists of the world? Probably not, but you have to start somewhere. Everybody
Right.
everybody's work improves the more practice they have. So you might think it's garbage, but if you're wanting to get a job or you're wanting to get hired or you have to have some example of your work. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, let's be like, I don't mean this in a cynical way, but it's going to sound cynical. There are services like Fiverr where you can get trash design for $5 or 15 or whatever it is. And the reason I bring that up is that people have necessity for all skill levels. So
Right. Exactly.
you might be the perfect fit for what somebody is looking for. And beyond that, you might actually they might be willing to pay you a lot for your specific style or your specific talent. I mean, just go look down the children's book aisles and flip through some of those. Some of those are the worst illustrations I've ever seen, and yet they are making a ton of money.
Yeah.
There is a place for all kinds of skills.
Yeah. So going back to a topic that we were talking about just earlier, some people don't have the budget for senior level artists.
Yeah.
So they have to make accommodations for that. And that's when they come down to the junior level and the entry level people. And that's their sweet spot right now. That's their sweet spot. You aren't going to make, and I'm talking specifically to here, let me find the camera over here. I'm talking specifically to you, Elizabeth. You have the flexibility because you're still living with your family, so you can take a little bit of that financial hit. You know you're not going to be homeless. You know you're not going to be hungry. So those are the projects that you want to cut your teeth on, is those ones that might not pay as much, but you're gaining that experience. And eventually what'll happen is you're going to continue to make art and you're going to get better. And again, those are the pieces that you trade out for the ones that you just called trash.
Yeah. I think that was a perfect description.
Yeah, you did good. I like that.
Yay. Speaking of Fiverr, when I was sitting at that table drawing and I had a bunch of people around the table watching me draw, someone walks up and says, "Oh yeah, I just got a project done through Fiverr." And I said, "I didn't even know this person. We legit they just walked up." And I go, "You have to leave."
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
I did.
I don't believe it.
I did.
That's savage if you
did.
did that.
I did. They're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? I have to leave?" I go, "You work with Fiverr?" They're like, "Yeah." I was like, with all these hungry artists out here, you working with Fiverr? And they're like, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean?" And then they were explaining how they went to Fiverr. They didn't really pay $5. As a matter of fact, they were explaining how they didn't really ever pay $5. It's more like they needed a drawing done and they paid someone like $50 or $100 or whatever it was.
Yeah, Fiverr's a little misleading. I think it started out as we'll do anything for $5, but now I think my understanding is it's more like installments. Like you basically say how many installments of $5 this is worth. So in theory, you can get paid the same amount anybody else would.
100 installments of $5.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kind of. It's a silly thing at this point, but Dave Etsy says work tends to bring more work too. Then you just slowly climb the better client ladder. Yeah. That is true.
I mean, currently I'm working on, and this is beside the whole YouTube thing, I'm working on 3 commissions and a cartoon. And it's crazy. Like you get busy and things just continue to happen. and
Mhm.
someone sees that thing, like 2 of my 3, and this is probably a topic that we should bring up on another show, but finding different ways to work your artwork into all the projects that you're ever working on. But for example, I wanted to use the Midway Radio hour to work on some artwork, so I started doing caricatures of the people that would come on the show. Well, come to find out, there's a whole bunch of people in Chicago who have my caricature as their uh, um, profile picture.
Mhm.
And then people ask, hey, who did that? And then they all point to me, and I'm doing 2 of my 3 commissions are now from word of mouth from doing the Midway Radio hour.
Yeah, it's like it like organically happens that way. It's like really nice.
Huh. Yeah. Which and that then, I mean, it helps get the word out, and
Mhm.
every project. And listen, at the beginning of this whole Midway thing, you want to talk about trash. Some of those drawings, I was like, I'm embarrassed to even show this.
Yeah.
But now it's at the point where people see it and they're digging it. So, you just
Yeah,
have
there
to
you go.
you work your skills into everything that you're doing, and it's only inevitable. You're going to get better.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the Draw with Jazza Fiverr videos?
No, what is this?
Oh
Do you
yeah, I
guys
did.
know Draw with Jazza? Yeah.
Yeah,
He's I don't know, I think he has like 1 million subscribers or something.
he's actually here this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
trying to bump into him, but I haven't seen him yet. You know how I get.
Getting all mixy.
well, I hope you do bump into him, but that he hired a bunch of Fiverr artists to create stuff for him,
Yeah.
and it was interesting to see. I still don't know if I approve, but it was a very interesting video to see.
Yeah.
He got a lot
Yeah,
of
well,
results,
he
and
had
obviously he didn't pay $5 just for. I think it was more. He did have like a tier though. He had like a really cheap tier. He had them all do the same thing, and he had like a cheap tier, a mid tier, and then like a higher tier.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the ones that he paid a little extra for were hot trash, and some of the ones that were a little bit on the cheaper side were really good.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's interesting that that's just, and that almost kind of proves, the point that we're basically worth what we decide we're worth.
Right.
It's not necessary, you should just be okay with charging what you want to charge, and
Right.
if you want to get more money, you get more money because somebody will pay you for it.
Yeah.
And think of this too. Everyone said that Charles Schultz's artwork was childish and not good. Meanwhile, Charles Schultz ended up being one of the richest, if not the richest, comic artists ever in the history of the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
so you can't don't judge yourself. Let the world do that.
Yeah.
So to tie Elizabeth's point back with the whole thing, the whole chat from the beginning, I mean, don't undersell yourself. I mean, put your best foot forward, put your best stuff out there. But yeah, union or non-union, go in asking for, what you think you're worth. Like Landon says, don't be afraid to ask for what you honestly feel you're worth, because someone will probably pay it.
And then ask, is that the best you can do?
Yeah.
No, what's funny is, what'll happen is people will be like, okay, so how much? And then it's always that really awkward moment because you shouldn't be the first one to make the offer, right? So if Landon comes to me and says, "Yo, I need one of your drawings done," I'll be like, "All right, cool. What's your budget?" Landon's gonna say, "Well, what are your rates?" I'm gonna say, "Well, it depends on your budget," and then Landon's gonna say,
Well,
right,
it's just
because
very simple.
no one wants to be the very first one to throw down a number, right? I cannot be like, "Okay, Landon, I'll do it for $10," and then Landon is like, "All right, cool, deal," and then I come back and say, "Is that the best you can do?" That's not how it works. So don't do that.
Don't do that. Do it right. Don't do it
Yeah.
wrong.
Do it right. You wait. They make the initial thing. And this is something that I just learned just a few months ago, and I don't know. It's something that's completely an honest question, but it helps. It helps with that whole trying to figure out the budget versus my rates and everything. Crap! Now that I'm looking for it, I can't find it. It's a sentence that I wrote down. Here we go. I need to know your budget so I can figure out your options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing more honest than that, right?
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and says, "I need a drawing," and I say, "Well, what's your budget?" and they say, "Well, I don't know. What are your rates?" I say, "Well, I can tell you my rates, but you're going to have a heart attack."
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't necessarily want to do that either, right?
Right.
You as the performer or the producer of said project, you need to know, because can I build you a website? Yeah. But depending on how much you have to spend, we can go Squarespace, we can go GoDaddy, we can go WordPress, or we can just go straight up and just code the thing from scratch. But do you have code the thing from scratch money? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think that's a super important point, because I think a lot of people get hung up on, well, how much should I charge? And then the other person's like, well, what's your rate versus what's your budget? And it's just, you get stuck in this stalemate. And if you take the proactive stance and you, by saying what Carlos just said, let's figure out, tell me your budget so we can figure out your options. What you're saying is that I can probably work with you no matter where you are, but my quality level and time commitment will greatly adjust. Like, I would gladly draw a portrait of anybody for $50, but it's going to be a very different portrait than if you
Right.
pay me 5,000. Very different portrait.
Right.
Would I take
Right.
either job? Probably, but $50 is probably going to get you about 20 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's, I would never be ashamed. I've actually used that in the past, and now talking about it, just a few days ago, this happened to me, where someone saw some of my artwork out there, and she said, "Hey, did you do this?" And she shared with me a picture, and I was like, "Yeah, that was me." She was like, "Oh, cool, I want to work with you." And I said, "All right, cool." She goes, "What are your rates?" And I forgot to say, "What's your budget?" I was like, "This is how much I get paid." Blah blah blah. And here, spoiler alert. I try to get $100 an hour, depending on who it is. But if it's a large corporation with money, we go higher. We're doing $150. If it's a smaller thing, or it's a small person, they're alone, and it's just a couple people, I'm flexible, but I need to know your budget. Like, how deep are we going with this thing? So anyway, with this girl, I said, "This is my rate," and she hasn't written back in about 4 days.
Mm.
So, it is what it is. I was like, I'm gonna be at VidCon anyway, so I don't have time
Yeah.
I don't really have the time commitment right now. But when I get back home, I'll
Right.
probably follow up with her. But yeah, like, and if you look, as an independent person, and $100 an hour is very fair.
Yeah. It is.
But when you're dealing with an independent, she's a musician, and when you're dealing with someone who and I don't mean to assume that she's strapped financially. She's doing fine. But you can't be rich if you give it all away. So everyone is always looking for that deal or that hookup or whatever. So, but at the same time, we got to eat. So, sorry,
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome talking.
Boom.
Does anybody have any last things to add?
Another one.
Landon.
I would say one last thing. Just Elizabeth.
Of course you would.
Do it.
Elizabeth was talking about pricing in the comments and for commissions, and something that there's a scale that you can kind of make where you charge higher if it's something that you don't want to do, and you charge lower because it's something that you do want to do.
That you do want to do, yeah.
And that should help to help you to figure things out, basically.
Yeah. And don't, when you figure out like a rough hourly rate that you feel comfortable working for based on what Landon's scale, please don't shortchange yourself, and always include the time that you're not only the time you're going to spend on working on this thing, but don't forget to include potential revisions or set limit on revisions. And also don't forget to pay yourself for admin time. I spend sometimes an hour or more responding to emails, phone calls, whatever it may be. Like, that's also valuable.
Meetings.
Especially if it's an ongoing or large project, you could easily spend 5 to 10 hours just on admin time. Like, you should be paid for that. It's not just the time that you're doing the artistic work.
Right. And there's a lot of especially if you're okay. I was working on this animation project last year, and they needed it done in 3 weeks. Long story short, it took 3 months because everyone in their office needed to make their own changes to this animation. All of those hand-holding meetings where you're just basically, it's fine. What are your notes? No. All that stuff. All of that stuff is time taken away from you, either doing your work or taking you away from your family, taking you away from that movie that you wanted to see, all that stuff. And people have to pay for that. So always remember, always add some time in there for admin stuff. Meetings, emails, la la la.
Totally.
Cool.
Well, that was a good chat, guys.
I like that chat.
There you go. And thanks for joining the Discord channel there, Dave.
Yes.
See.
So if you guys are all interested in chatting with us when we're not on the show, you can find us at, somebody's got to help me with the short link.
It's discord.gg/
It'll be in the show notes.
Nice.
Did we get that?
Yeah, it's
change it to a name.
I tried to do the short URL or tiny URL, and then for some reason the Discord link itself expired. So we need to figure out.
The one that I just sent doesn't expire. The one that's in the chat right now, that doesn't expire.
Yeah.
So
what we'll do is we'll drop that in the show notes, and if you're watching, that link will be there. Otherwise, just keep asking, because for some reason Discord just lets links expire, and it doesn't make sense as to why.
Can somebody teach us Discord?
Right? We need a Discord.
Some
we need
pro
a
get on
Discord
there. We don't have
tutorial so badly.
Anyway, you can find the Sketch Zone podcast on Discord, where we are quite lively with work in progress chats, industry chats, everyday life chats, whatever you want to post. You can also
Chats
find
about
us at,
that time that Carlos met Lulu sketches.
yeah, there's selfies on there.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find us at sketch.zone, and you can also find us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget that this week's fun prompt is Rotten Wolf Cycling. Be sure to not just tag us, but go through the Instagram process of tagging us as a person so that we can easily find you and not get lost in the stream. We will share it on the show. We will discuss it. And we'll mention your name and share it on the feed and all that good stuff. So it's a Rotten Wolf Cycling. So Charlie B. Williams, if folks are looking to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me a couple different spots. Website is cargocollective.com/Charlie B. Williams. Twitter is CBW3. No, I've been just woke up.
You
I'm
are
here.
loud.
I have a deep voice, commanding voice that shakes your soul when you listen to it. So
yeah, I was about to fall asleep.
Just try to hold on.
Hey, this is Charlie B. Williams.
and then there's always Instagram.com/CharlieBW3, and then the almighty Pinterest, Pinterest.com/CharlieBW3. Check that out. A lot of new stuff on Pinterest. Yeah, check it out. There's some good things going on. And yeah, it's always been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Carlos Gomez on the road, laying in bed. Where can people find you?
Slang.
You can find me at Vid Con 2019.
Next
Coming at you, Lulu sketches and drawing with Jazza. CoconutJustice.com, Coconut Justice everywhere else. And if you go to youtube.com/Coconut Justice, subscribe, check out my last video. I'm giving away a sketch wallet. So do that. Subscribe. And also, if you're watching this, you should be subscribed. So go ahead and click that little subscribe button right there. You'll be subscribed to us.
It helps us a lot. If we can hit 1,000 subscribers, it will
change our life.
You will rip a hole in the universe.
We have to figure out, maybe like do a giveaway of some sort. Maybe we can reach out to some of the people we know to make a little 1,000 subscriber.
People we know, listen up.
Yeah.
A 1,000 subscriber giveaway. Or maybe
Dave
like, I don't know.
is suggesting a free set of steak knives. And if you call now, I'll give you this rack
now.
Absorb 6 gallons of water.
That's funny, Dave.
All right.
Well,
and
you get this medical alert bracelet. So if you fall, you just push the button.
Got you.
And Landon Wilson, our new Discord admin. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Discord.
I hope so.
No, you can find me LandonRWilson.com, at Landon R. Wilson everywhere else. Nice. Instagram, preferably.
Boom.
And I am Jack Kasperzak. You can find me at sketchbookjack.com and sketchbookjack mainly on Instagram. And again, we are the Sketch Zone Podcast. We are most active on Discord, here on YouTube, and Instagram.com/SketchZonePodcast. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.